It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 32, looking at the players of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Croatia. Part 2, the selection. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and this is a continuation of Series 32 on the players of the 2026 World Cup. This episode is part 2 of our coverage of Croatia's players. The final roster is released, and we're looking at the selections of Croatia. In part 1, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad. Amongst other things, we gave some biographical career information on the main players to help you to get to know them better. We won't be repeating that here. In part 2, our focus is on the selections, especially the final selections. Just let me pause to talk about the Mediacast here. We're not sure we're going to complete all 48 teams before the Cup, so we're going to make a few changes. Firstly, we're going to delay on the remaining African and CONCACAF teams. We covered the African teams in the 2025 African Cup just a half a year ago, and then we covered CONCACAF teams a year ago, just before the 2025 Gold Cup. The remaining teams we have are Ivory Coast, Tunisia, Egypt, Senegal, Algeria, and Congo DR, as well as Curacao. That's the only one from the CONCACAF region. We made sure to do the teams Ghana and Cape Verde, who didn't participate in the 2025 African Cup. Anyway, if you're interested in those teams, you can go back and check those Mediacasts from those 2 tournaments. We will try to do them here, but they'll be pushed to the end, and I'm not sure we're going to get to them there. So another change is that after Group E, we're going to start publishing parts 1 and 2 together in one Mediacast there, and that does not include Group Group H and Group L, which we've already done. Okay, and we do have another announcement in the outro about the Mediacast, but I don't want to dwell too much on that. Let's get on with the business, and this Mediacast is divided into 3 sections. Section 1, like in part 1, is some information on the team. This is pretty short, but important information. Before we get to the main part of the Mediacast, section 2, and that's where we look at the list that we compiled in part 1, and we'll tell you who made the final squad. Croatia didn't produce a preliminary squad there. We're also going to try to predict starters, and we're going to use the lineup for the 2026 games to help us with that, because in part 1 we didn't cover the March 2026 games, friendlies, or we have one warm-up game here that we can look at as well. In section 3, we're going to start with a spotlight review. That's a quick run through the main players who made it and didn't make the squad, as well as our predictions. And we have a couple of other orders of business there in section 3, including an update on injuries. So there we go. I forgot to put that on the graphic, but there we go. Section 3 is basically a few different types of summaries. Let's jump right into section 1, and we'll begin by talking about the squad. So teams are allowed to bring 26 players to the tournament. Croatia did that, and so 26 players. And as I said in the introduction, they did not produce a preliminary squad. So before we move on to section 2 and see who those players were, let's take a look at the recent games played in 2026, which we didn't cover in part 1. So 2 friendlies in March of 2026. The first game they played was in USA against Colombia. They won that 2-1. And then 5 days later, on March 31st, they played Brazil, also in the USA, and they won, or they lost that one 3-1. We're actually not interested in the results here. for this podcast, we're just interested in the lineups. So we're going to take a look at those there. Anyway, they do have 2 warm-up games. The first one is a friendly on June 2nd. That one is in Croatia. And, well, it's taken place already. It was against Belgium. And they lost that one 2-0. They have one more warm-up game on June 7th, also in Croatia, where they'll be playing Slovenia. We won't be able to look at the lineup for that game. Let's take a look at their formation. So we're going back to the Euro 2024 and all the games since then. And what we see is actually a 4-2-3-1 formation preferred. That's 10 out of the 19 games, or 54%, but it's actually a little bit more than that since after the Euro Cup, because in the Euro Cup, they used a 4-3-3 formation exclusively, and so the percentage is higher. Otherwise, they used 5 different formations beyond that, and we're not going to get into the weeds on that, but what we will do is kind of a summary or an analysis of the various formations they used. And we have a 2-man central defense in 70% of the games, and a 3-man central defense in 30% of the games. Half the time, though, that was in the Euro Cup, so not so much since. And then they have a single forward in 84% of the games, and a 2-man forward line in 16% of the games. So again, that 4-2-3-1 formation is probably the best one to envision for Croatia. All right, that's the end of section 1. I told you it'll be short. We're moving on to section 2 here. Our main order of business, our look at the candidates. So we have the list from part 1 here, and now we're going to go over it and tell you who made the squad here. So let's give me a moment to set up here. We begin with the manager, Zlatko Dalic. And yeah, again, we introduced him in part 1, but we won't be introducing him here. What we will be saying is he is still the manager, so we'll view him as a successful selection for the squad there. So Zlatko Dalic guiding them through the cup here. Next, we move on to goalkeepers. We had a definite candidate in Dominik Livakovic, and he was selected for the squad. And our likely candidate, or at least the first of them, Dominik Kotarski, was also selected for the squad. However, in section 1, we did tell you that Ivica Ivusic, and he is our second likely candidate here, was struggling with injury. He was out with an inflammation of the pubic bone since late November 2025 and had an unknown return date when we did part 1. He actually did return to fitness on May 21st, but was on the bench for 5 games, only starting the last game of the season there. He had been a regular starter before the injury. So it seems like fitness was kind of the issue when they were deciding the squad. The long story short there is Ivica Ivusic not selected for the squad there. And we're assuming the injury had something to do with it because he was a likely candidate. And so possible candidate and newcomer Ivor Pandur was selected, probably the third string keeper there. And we had a player seemingly off the squad, Nadilchko Labrovic, and he was not selected for the squad. So we have our 3 candidates, Dominik Livakovic, Dominik Kotarski, and Ivor Pandur. Again, we introduced them in part 1, so we won't do that here. What we will do is summarize the position over the past little while and predict the starters. Predicting the starters is the main thing that we're doing, and it looks like Dominik Livakovic all the way. He started 14 of their 16 games in the build-up to the Cup, at least up to the end of 2025. Kotarski does look like the backup. He started 2 of their 16 games, whereas the injured Ivica Ivusic hadn't started any. Let's look before we decide at the recent games. So in the March friendlies, it was Livakovic starting both of those, and also starting the June match, the first June warm-up match. So it kind of confirms what we thought, which is put on the brakes. I forgot to introduce a new candidate. I'll just quickly do that. He didn't make the squad, but I want to put his name out there. It's Carlo Latica. Kind of came in after 2025. So for the March games there, he appeared on the bench for both of those matches. Okay, now we can get back to our business. We're giving Dominik Livakovic 3 stars to indicate that he's the definite starter. That was a lot of build up to such a short statement, but there we have it. Dominik Livakovic, we're quite sure will be the starter. Let's go to defense and begin with central defenders. A bit of news here. Our definite candidate, Joseph Sutalo, was unsurprisingly selected for the squad. However, he was injured recently. He is currently out with an unknown injury and an unknown return date. He played 90 minutes of their game on May 10th of his club game with Ajax in the Netherlands there, and but in the next game was listed as injured on May 17th. That was the last regular game of the season, so he was out for that game, and also their 2 kind of postseason games, 2 Conference League final, semi-final games after that, out with this injury. So it doesn't look good for Joseph Sutalo. He is on the roster, but he may have to be replaced. I imagine they're checking to see if he will recover in time there. So Joseph Sutalo, I'm actually just going to see if anything has been said since I prepared the Mediacast here, just to keep you completely up to date here. Croatia, and no, he is still on the squad there. So we will have to wait and see. That could be a big blow to them, but let's continue on. Our 2 likely candidates, Duje Kaletakar is the first of those, and he was selected for the squad, as too was Marin Pongracic. Both of those selected. Our possible candidates were also both selected. The first is Martin Ehrlich, and then newcomer Luka Vuskovic. All 5 of our candidates on the Part 1 list then were selected. There are no new candidates here. I remembered to check this time, and so we can talk about the position a little bit. It was Joseph Sutalo and Marin Pogracic as the pair in the Euro Cup. After a bit of experimentation, even during the Cup, actually, Duje Kaletakar emerged as Sutalo's main partner. And right at the end, or towards the end, Luka Vuskovic came in at the end. He just has 1 start so far. So we're actually awaiting anxiously the 2026 games to see if he can make inroads. For now, in our minds, it looks like Kaletakar and Sutalo as the starting pair, but there's doubt about both of those, Sutalo's injury and whether Vuskovic can make any inroads. Let's take a look at the March game, and we have actually a 3-man defense, and it's Vuskovic, the newcomer, in the middle, who scored a goal, actually, and then Pogracic on the left and Ehrlich on the right. Now, I should say that this does look like a bit of an experimental squad. And we're seeing this with a lot of teams in the March games. The first game, fairly experimental, and the second looking more like what we expect as a starting lineup in the squad. And that seems to be the case here. But we do see Vuskovic in the middle again. This time he's flanked by Sutalo and Kaletakar in a 3-man central defense. So that's quite interesting. It's a three-man central defence in the June game as well. Vuskovic in the middle, Sutalo on the right, and Gvardiol on the left. Sometimes Gvardiol does appear, especially in the three-man defence, so that's no surprise. So looks like Vuskovic did make inroads. So whereas we would have had, well, we're going to leave Sutalo as a definite starter. Kind of disregarding his injury there. Of course, if he is injured, that'll change things. But we're not going to make a prediction based on that injury because we really don't know much about it. But having had initially Carleta Carr as a likely starter, we now have him as a possible starter. And I would even go as far as to say that Vuskovic is a likely starter, having started all three of those games in 2026. So that's pretty interesting developments there. And let's move on to the left-back position. Here we have Josko Gvardiol. He actually is primarily coded as a central defender, but for Croatia, he seems to be almost forced into the left-back position. Perhaps I'll talk about that more a little bit later. Anyway, Josko Gvardiol, our definite candidate, was selected for the squad. Borna Sosa was kind of the backup for this position in the beginning of the period after the Euro Cup there, but kind of drifted off little by little over the period, and now is not selected for the squad at all. So our possible candidate, Borna Sosa, not making the squad. And less surprisingly, Domagoj Bradaric, our possible but unlikely candidate, not making the squad either. So really, we just have Josko Gvardiol over here, who is not naturally a left back. He kind of is, but as I say, primarily coded as a centre back. So we think Gvardiol was basically drafted into the position because they don't have candidates really as a left back. Josko Gvardiol played as a central defender, but that was when Borna Sosa could cover the position. And Sosa was off. Did I say Sousa? I meant Sosa. Sosa was often actually more of a left winger when Gvardiol was the left central defender in a three-man defence, kind of like we've seen in the October or in the recent games here. The main problem is that Sosa wasn't playing for his club, wasn't getting field time for his club. So that's the reason he dropped off. And that forced Gvardiol more into the left-back position. And they don't seem to have anyone else to cover. So when he hasn't been available, or when he is playing central defence, out-of-position players have stepped in when he's not available. So if I look at the recent games, we see something common. It's basically Ivan Perisic playing as the left winger in the three-man defence. He even plays as a left back in a five-man defence in the middle game there. So that would be my main candidate as the backup, is Ivan Perisic. So we're going to have Josko Gvardiol as a definite starter here. And I think I will go up and grab Perisic's name because I think he is a possible starter as a left back, or more likely as a left midfielder when there's a three-man central defence. So let me put him as a possible candidate here. Or rather, I'll just go up to where he is on the list and give him 1 star as a possible starter in this position here. Okay, so Ivan Perisic, and we will kind of return to repeat this when we come up to left field, when we come up to the left attacking position where Perisic is. Let's now go over to the right side and look at the candidates there. We have Christian Jakic as a definite candidate, and he was selected for the squad. And we also have Josip Stanisic, a likely candidate here, selected for the squad. We had two candidates at the possible level, but neither of them were selected. It's Josip Juranovic, quite an experienced player for the team with 40 caps, but not selected, and newcomer Ivan Smolcic. Neither of those making the final squad. Let's talk about this position and the starters there. So Stanisic was stationed there in the Euro Cup, but was out injured in the fall of 2024. And because of that, a lot of experimentation ensued. Christian Jakic is actually coded as a defensive midfielder, but he did start 2 of the 6 games in the fall of 2025 as a right back. Stanisic returned from his injury in March of 2025 as a starter, but was injured again, actually twice in the fall of 2025. This time, Jakic stepped in immediately and now actually seems to be in competition for the starting position even after Stanisic returned. So it could be the case that Stanisic comes back and resumes his position, or it could be that Jakic has now become the starting right back. Let's look and see if the 2026 games inform us. So in March, it was the ubiquitous Palisic starting as a left winger in the 3-man formation, 3-man defense there. So the right back position pushes up to a right winger position. Palisic there. It is actually Stanisic in the second game in March there. And Stanisic also in the June friendly there on June 2nd. So it does look like Stanisic has come into back into the starting role. So we'll give him 2 stars as the likely starter, but we are going to give 1 star to Christian Jakic as a possible starter there. All right, up to the midfield. And defensive midfielders. Here we have, as a definite candidate, Petar Sukic or Susic. And I'm going to tell you that we need to be careful not to mix him up with Luka Susic, or Sukic is how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm not dead sure. But there is a Luka Sukic, a couple of repeated names actually on Croatia's squad, which make it a bit confusing. Anyway, Petar Sukic was selected for the squad. Mateo Kovacic is a likely candidate. He was also selected. The other likely candidate, Nicola Moro, also selected. We're going to cover central midfielders at the same time here because there's often not a lot of difference between them. Central midfielders, we had a definite candidate in Luka Modric. He's the captain of the team and he was selected despite being 40 years old now. Incredible. Next we have, and that's it actually here. We go way down to the seemingly off the squad level where we have Marcelo Brozovic, and he is not selected for the final squad there. So those are our candidates. Not many in the midfield here. I'll just repeat the names. Petar Sukic, Mateo Kovacic, Nicola Moro, and Luka Modric. Those are the 4 in the defensive midfield. And let's talk about the position and the potential starters here. They used the 4-3-3 formation in the last Euro Cup, and it was Luka Modric, Mateo Kovacic, and Marcelo Brozovic all in a line in that midfield line of the 4-3-3 formation. Brozovic didn't appear after the Euro Cup, and Petar Sukic basically replaced him by degrees and replaced Mateo Kovacic ultimately in what became a midfield pairing by the end of Luka Modric and Luka Sukic. Kovacic might still be in the mix because it was injuries that mostly kept him out, and also the versatile attacking midfielder Mario Pasalic also appears, so maybe a candidate back here. So ultimately, what we think, or what we thought at the end of 2025, was Luka Modric as a definite starter, Petar Sukic as a likely starter, and then both Mateo Kovacic and Mario Pasalic as possible starters, keeping in mind that they sometimes do use a three-man midfield there. Okay, I'm constantly worried that I'm mixing up Petar, um, Petar and Luka Sukic. Anyway, let's take a look at the March games here. The first game, again, a bit experimental. We see Moro and Sukic in the midfield there. So Moro was selected for the squad, but not much of a starter, truth be told. And in the second game, more what we expect to see, that partnership of Luka Modric and Petar Sukic there. That's the second March game. In the third March game, though, it's Luka Modric and Kovacic there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go with experience in Kovacic. And again, as I said, wasn't really appearing largely because of injury there. So we're going to put Luka Modric as a definite starter there. And I think we're just going to consider Mateo Kovacic and Petar Sukic as equal possibilities. So we'll give them 1 star, both as possible starters there. People more familiar with Croatia may be looking and saying, no way, it's one candidate or the other. But from our vantage point here, going mostly off what we see in the lineups, it looks pretty even. Let's go on upfield. I've already done that on the graphics. To the attacking midfield. And actually, we're going to start with a versatile attacking midfielder. I wonder if I should have just put him as a versatile midfielder, because we did see him in the central midfield as well. It's Mario Pasalic. And again, we need to be careful here because there's a player with a very similar name, Marco Pasalic, who is we'll meet in the right attacking midfield here. But Mario Pasalic is the roving player who we're going to meet in almost every position from now on. Anyway, Mario Pasalic was selected for the final squad, and we'll talk a little bit later about his likelihood of being a starter there. We'll do that when we get to central attacking midfield. Let's go on to left attackers. Here we have Andre Kramaric, coded primarily as a forward, but during this period, or at least the first half of this period, played more in the left attacking midfield role. In the second half, more as a central attacking midfielder. Anyway, Andre Kramaric was selected for the squad. Ivan Perisic is an interesting character positionally. As you can see, or as you recall, we've already coded him as a possible starter as a left back. He's generally on the left side, but can appear anywhere. He's more of a winger. We have him here as a left attacking midfield, but he also appeared a couple of times as a right attacking midfielder as well. So Ivan Perisic, a pretty versatile player. Anyway, he is selected for the squad, and we'll talk a bit more about his position going forward. And then we have likely candidate Tony Fruck, who was selected for the squad as well. And possible but unlikely Mislav Orsic was not selected for the final squad. And we had 2 candidates seemingly off the squad, Luka Ivanusec and Marco Piaka. Neither of those selected for the squad here. No new candidates. In fact, apart from that goalkeeper, there were no new candidates for Croatia. No candidates who were not on our list in part 1. Let's go back and talk about the position of left attacker then. As I said, Andre Kramaric was in the position in the first half of the period. That includes the cup. and for much of 2024, but less so towards the end. He kind of migrated over to central attacking midfielder. Uh, Ivan Perisic and Mario Pulisic are versatile attacking midfielder, as well as newcomer Tony Frog, all vied for the position in 2025, and there's no clear starter among them. So I've been looking forward to looking at the 2026 games to see if one of them emerges. So let's do that. In the first March game, it was Mario Pasalic. Again, that was an experimental squad, so it doesn't necessarily say much. In the second one, it's attacking midfielder, central attacking midfielder, Baturina, who sometimes does appear over here. He pretty much appears over all three spots in the in the attacking midfield, so that's not a surprise. But not one of the candidates we were looking at. And actually, it was Baturina in the June game as well, too. So perhaps he's being favored. We should add him here. So ultimately, it's very hard to say. It could be any one of the names we've mentioned: Kramaric, Perisic, Mario Pasalic, Fruck, or Baturina. And so we're just going to give one star to all of them for this position here. We'll go back and put Pasalic as 1 star as LAM. And then we're going to go up to the central attackers where Baturina is and give him 1 star as LAM, mostly based on his recent appearances there in the 2026 games. All right, so a lot of confusion on the starting left attacker, and I'm afraid it's the same on the right, the same kind of situation. We have no definite candidate here, but at the possible level, sorry, I got to find my spot in the script here. Okay, so at the at the likely level, we have the other Pasalic. It's Marco Pasalic. He does actually start some games, but not as much as Mario Pasalic there. And I gotta say, I think sometimes the website sources that I use get confused between the two Pasalics and the two Sukics as well. Here in the possible level, we find the other Sukic. It's Luka Sukic. And I definitely have seen websites putting him in the central midfield. He's coded as a central midfielder, where I actually knew it was Pitar Sukic that started. So a lot of confusion. The other possible candidate for right attacking midfielder was Lovro Mayer, but he was not selected for the squad. A mild surprise there. And so that's all we have over here, Marco Pasalic and Luka Sukic. Let's talk about the position, though, because really they're not very strong candidates over here either. It was Lovro Mayer in the Euro Cup, or at least for the first 2 games of the Euro Cup. After that, even in the third game of the Euro Cup, an incessant rotation began with all sorts of players coming into the position, and that includes out-of-position players. I mentioned Perisic was over here, Mario Pasalic was over here, and Baturina also. So there's really no clear candidate here at all. I would say the 2 candidates we have, Marco Pasalic and Luka Sukic, are unlikely starters. What I will say is the position seemingly is used when they want to put 2 players from the same position on the field, or, for example, they want to use Mario Pasalic, and have Perisic on the field, for example. So that's what I really think is going on. But we haven't looked at the March games yet for right attacking midfielder. And let's see who it is. A name I haven't even mentioned. That's not even a surprise. It's Vlasic. We'll be meeting him soon as a central attacker, Nikola Vlasic. He was there in the first game again in March. That's again a bit experimental. In the second game, it's Andre Kramaric. I think I forgot to mention he has popped up here as well, and he does in the second March game. And then in the third game, it gets even more confusing with Pitar Sukic. And again, I wonder if that's a mistake and it's actually Luka Sukic. But on this source that I'm using, it is Pitar Sukic. So really, that just confirms that this is a very unsettled position. And in terms of nominating a starter, we can't do that over here. It's really undefinable there. Okay, let's go to the central attacking midfield. And we have no definite candidate here either. We have Martin Baturina as a likely candidate, and he is selected for the squad. As I said, he plays all three positions, but we will talk about him as a central attacking midfielder in this section. And then the candidate we just met, Nikola Vlasic, also a possible candidate here. And not also, he's a possible, Baturina is likely. Vlasic, though, did make the final squad there. So those are the two candidates over here. And let's talk about the position. So first of all, the position of central attacking midfielder was not used much in the first half of the period or in the Euro Cup, a 4-3-3 formation. When it was used, though, it was actually central midfielder Mateo Kovacic as the main player in the position. In 2025, we have seen that Andre Kramaric moved from the left to more to this position. But I got to say, overall, this position too seems to be used to accommodate fitting two players that they want on the field, kind of regardless of their coded position. Here. So we do see various players coming into the position, but we should mention Martin Baturina as a possible starter somewhere because he started enough that it is possible. So what I'm going to actually do here is use this position of central attacking midfielder to generally rate some of the players who move around a lot. So I'm going to say overall, Andre Kramaric is a likely starter. It's just not clear what position he'll start in. And same is true with Mario Pasalic and Ivan Perisic. We think they are likely starters somewhere on the field. Martin Baturina, we think, is a possible starter also somewhere in the attacking midfield. So we're going to give him 1 star, and we're going to go back and give Ivan Perisic 1 star as LAM there, but generally 2 stars overall as a starter. Same with Andre Kramaric, 2 stars overall as a starter. And Mario Pasalic, same thing, 2 stars overall. That's pretty confusing, but that really does represent what we think. We haven't looked at the recent games for the position, and they did use it in. Did they use it? Yes. No, they didn't use it at all. It's by the way, a 2-4-3-1 formation. No, sorry, a 3-4-2-1 formation in the first game. So there's kind of 2 central attacking midfielders, but we consider them left and right there. A 5-4-1 formation in the second game, so no central attacking midfielders. It's central midfielders Modric and Sukic, Pitar Sukic, in the middle of the central midfield there. And in the last game, it's a 3-4-2-1 formation. So again, 2 attacking midfielders we consider left and right. All right, I hope that's not too confusing. We go on to forwards. That's our last category here. And we begin with definite candidate Franjo Ivanovic. Now, I should say No, he wasn't selected for the squad, so that's a bit of a surprise. And nevertheless, I was going to say he's not a starter anyway. We did have him as a definite candidate because he got his first cap in March of 2025. He did start 3 games, but he subbed in for 6 and was on the bench for the other. So we put him as definite because he was always called up. Well, obviously not now, but wasn't necessarily a starter. So don't think that because he's in the definite level necessarily makes him a starter. Sometimes it's not the case. Our 2 likely candidates, though, are potential starters. Ante Budimir, who was selected for the squad, and Igor Matanovic, also selected there. Our possible candidate, Petar Musa, was selected for the squad, but our 2 candidates at the seemingly off the squad level were not selected. That's Marin Lubicic and Bruno Petkovic. There, both of those not making the final cut. So let's talk about this position in terms of potential starters. And there has been some rotation in this position. Andrej Kramaric is coded as a forward, so he's always a possibility here. Even though over the period he really only appeared here once or twice. A few players have come in and out, but really it's Ante Budimir and Igor Matanovic kind of vying for the starting role. They're the main candidates. Each of them had 6 starts in the position over the after the Euro Cup. Actually, Matanovic had 5. Budimir had 6. Let's look and see what the recent games say. Well, as we might expect, in one of them it was Matanovic and the other in Budimir. I got to confess that I slightly favor Budimir as the starter for a few different reasons that I won't get into. Matanovic, though, did start in the first March game and scored a goal, which is good for his claim. But as I said, that seems to be a bit more of an experimental squad than the second March game where Budimir started. In the June friendly, it was Petar Musa. So I don't know if that constitutes a threat to the starting position. It's just one game, so not enough evidence there. What we're going to do here is give 1 star to each of Budimir and Matanovic. It's kind of like a soccer game. You get 3 points for a win, but if it's a tie, you only get 1 point. So that's where we land on that. All right, that brings us to the end of section 2. And we move on to section 3, and we begin that with our Spotlight Review. And in the Spotlight Review, we want to welcome listeners firstly to the short version of the Mediacast. That starts with this. And we begin our Spotlight Review, which is a race through the squad, reviewing what we covered in section 2 for the most part of the full version. We gave more details there. We're just going to give the bare bones here, but it also acts as a good kind of summary for those who did listen to the section 2 of the Mediacast. So let's start at the top with the managers. Zlatko Dalic, he was selected for the squad. Effectively, that's how we'll put it. So no change is what we really mean at the managerial level. Goalkeepers, we have definite candidate Dominik Livakovic, who was selected. 2 likely candidates, Dominik Kotarski, who was selected, but Ivica Ivusic not selected, likely due to injury there. And that opened the door for possible candidate and newcomer Ivor Pandor, who was selected for the squad. So those are our 3 goalkeepers, Livakovic, Kotarski, and Pandor. Moving up to central defence, we have a definite candidate in Josip Sutalo. However, he was recently injured. I'm going to talk about that when we get to the injury section shortly after this. But nevertheless, he is on the squad, Josip Sutalo. Our 2 likely candidates also selected, Duje Karletakar and Marin Pogracic. And our two possible candidates also selected, Martin Ehrlich and Luka Vuskovic. Oh, I forgot to talk about starters. So let's go back to goalkeepers. We think that Dominik Livakovic is a definite starter there. For central defenders, disregarding Joseph Sutalo's recent injury, we have him as a definite starter. Of course, an injury may change that. And we've bumped Luka Vuskovic up to a likely starter after looking at the March 2026 games and the recent June warm-up match, and bumped Duje Karlatakar down from likely to possible now. All right, to the left-back position, the only player really here is Josko Gvardiol, and so we give him 3 stars as a starter. I'm getting ahead of myself, though. We also had a possible candidate in Borna Sosa, but he was not selected for the squad. And actually, we're not going to talk about candidates at the possible but unlikely level or below unless they were selected. We'll just keep it to the possible, likely, or definite candidates here. Josko Gvardiol, then, a definite starter in our estimation. Right backs, we have a definite candidate in Christian Jakic, and then and he was selected. A likely candidate in Josip Stanisic, who was also selected, but our 2 possible candidates, Josip Juranovic and Ivan Smolcic, neither of those making the final squad there. Before the March 2026 games, we considered it a fairly even bet between Jakic and Stanisic. But having looked at the March games, we now think Stanisic has resumed his position as the starter. We give him 2 stars to indicate a likely starter, and Jakic gets 1 star as a possible starter. Up we go to the defensive and central midfield. We're going to do both together here. So we have a definite candidate in Petar Sukic, and he was selected, as were our 2 likely defensive midfielders, Mateo Kovacic and Nicola Moro. Those were all the candidates we had here, and they were all selected. And for central midfielders, believe it or not, only 1 candidate on our list at the possible, likely, or definite level. It is Captain Luka Modric, who was selected for the squad. So just 4 candidates, really, and all of them selected. In terms of starters, we think Luka Modric is a definite starter, and we give 1 star each to Petar Sukic and Mateo Kovacic, both of them just at the possible level there. We're not really sure between them who it's going to be, so we can't nominate a likely candidate there. Upfield we go, and just as we get to attacking midfielders, we're going to begin with a versatile attacking midfielder. We might have put him just as a versatile midfielder because he does also play in central midfield. It's the ubiquitous Mario Pasalic, and he was at the definite level, and he was selected. In short, we have him as a likely candidate to start somewhere on the field, and we also have him as a possible starter as left attacking midfielder, but he could start in any number of positions. Let's move on to left attackers. Here we have 2 definite candidates. We've moved players around a little bit here. Andrej Kramaric was selected for the squad. So was our other definite candidate, Ivan Perisic, and our likely candidate, Tony Fruck, also selected. That's all we have for candidates at the possible level or above. And here too, we think Andrej Kramaric and Ivan Perisic will be likely starters somewhere on the field. We give Andrej Kramaric a possibility of starting as left attacking midfielder, and Ivan Perisic. Additionally, we give Ivan Perisic a possibility even as starting as a left back, or more likely as a left winger if they use a 3-man central defence as they did in the recent games in 2026. Okay, moving over to right attacker. We do have two candidates here. The first one, Marko Pasalic, was selected for the squad. Our first possible candidates, Luka Sukic, also selected for the squad, but Lovro Meyer also at the possible level, not making the final squad there. For starters in this position, we don't think it's going to be either of the candidates over here, Pasalic or Sukic. It could be anyone, and we've come up with the theory that basically they're using this and the next position just to put on players they want to have on. So it could be two players who are coded in the same position, or players playing out of position there. So we don't nominate any starters in the right back position. It could be anyone. Central attacking midfield, we also have two candidates, both selected. First, at the likely level, we had Martin Baturina, and then at the possible level, Nikola Vlasic, both of those selected for the squad. Again, they might appear in other positions on the field, or other players might appear in this central attacking position. We're really not sure. Overall, we give Martin Baturina 1 star as a possible starter. I might even say 1.5 stars. He could start here as a central attacker, but possibly also as a left attacking midfielder, Martin Baturina. Moving up to the forward line, well, we had Franjo Ivanovic, not so much a starter, but always called up. He was at the definite level, but he wasn't selected. Our two likely candidates, though, were Ante Budimir and Igor Matanovic, and ultimately those two are kind of battling for the starting position. Those two were selected. And our possible candidate, Petar Musa, was also selected for the final squad there, and actually started in the June friendly, so he kind of adds a bit of confusion to our thinking. But really, we can't decide. We think it's going to be Budimir or Matanovic, but we can't decide which one. So they kind of cancel each other out. We think both are possible candidates to start here. All right, that's it. The spotlight review. And we move on to our next order of business in section 3 here. That is surprises. Well, really not many surprises for Croatia. It's a real veteran squad. I'll talk about that in the closing thoughts there. But the only surprise was the notable non-selection, Franjo Ivanovic. As I just said at the end of section 2, he was not in the definite category because he's a starter, but because he was regularly called up ever since his first cap in March 2025, every time, in fact. So a bit of a surprise that he was not selected, but not a really big name for the squad there. Unexpected inclusions, well, we don't have any players that were at the possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad level that were selected, so no surprises there. And as I said, no new players apart from one goalkeeper brought in March who was not selected for the squad. No new players there, and none making the final squad. Okay, so big names off the squad. At the end of part 1, we did mention these two names, Marcelo Brozovic. He is actually 34 years old, not that old, 99 caps for Croatia between 2014 and 2024, but last appeared in the Euro Cup in 2024 there. Bruno Petkovic, well, like a lot of the big names off the squad, not quite veterans. We consider 60 caps veteran status. Bruno Petkovic has 42 caps between 2019 and 2024. He's 32 years old and last appeared in October of 2024. I won't go through like their club history or their tournament history. You can assume that all of these players have been involved in several tournaments. So big names off the squad. Well, that was what we had at the end of part 1. Now we have to add a few because they weren't selected. We have Josip Juranovic, the right back, had been with the squad since 2017 with 40 caps and is 31 years old. And he was a possible candidate for us here, but not selected. Right attacking midfielder Lovro Mayer also was a possible candidate here. Also since 2017, 37 caps and 8 goals for him, just 28 years old. So there is room for him to come back, but not selected for the final squad here. Next category is injuries. Let's take a look at it. We had 2 injuries on the list in part 1, so we'll update those first. The first one is goalkeeper Ivica Ivucevic, out with an inflammation of the pubic bone since late November. And at the end of part 1, it was an unknown return date. He actually did return to fitness right at the end. Well, I have May 21st here. I'm actually thinking that's probably April 21st when he came back. He was on the bench for 5 games. He was a starter for his club, had to split prior to his injury, but never got back to the starting role. On the bench for 5 games. He did start the last game of the season. That was on May 22nd. So I wonder if it's just not really getting back to fitness there, Ivica Ivucic. Anyway, not selected for the final squad. We think the injury at least had something to do with it, if not mostly the reason. So we move him from the unknown category here to the, we'll say dropped due to injury, although it is possible he was just not selected. The other one was Josko Gvardial at the end of part 1. He had been out with a broken tibia since early January, had been expected back on May 1st, and actually did come off the injury list in early May. However, he was not named to the Manchester City squad for the next 2 games after that. He was back on May 11th and fielded for 58 minutes, which is a good sign. And he was on the bench for the next one and subbed in for just 12 minutes into the last game. So I wonder if his fitness is a concern, but he's a definite candidate, and I think they will want him as a starter there. Anyway, we moved Josko Gvardial from expected back to, I'm going to say, recovered from injury for him. There may be a bit of a doubt about his fitness, but whether he's back up to speed. But he's had time, it seems. Now we look at new injuries. We only have one, but it's a big one. It's to Joseph Sutalo, the defender, probably their most consistent starting defender, out with an unknown injury and an unknown return date. Strangely, he had finished the game before he was listed as injured on May 10th, so he wasn't injured in the game, but then was listed as injured the following week on May 17th. That was the last regular season game for his club, Ajax. But Ajax also had 2 Conference League semi-final games after that. He was listed as injured for both of those too, so it's not looking good. This may have, I'm just trying to think if this would have happened before or after the squad was selected. But what we are seeing for a lot of the teams is that they'll put them on the list and evaluate their fitness. And then I'm expecting several players to be those players judged to not be in condition to play in the cup to be replaced shortly before the cup begins, because teams are allowed to do that. That might be the case with Joseph Sutalo, and it would be a loss for the team. So I'm just going to leave him as an injury doubt there, but still on the roster, and we'll have to wait. We won't be able to tell you in our media cast, but if you keep an eye on the roster, I think there's a chance he might be replaced there. He's the only injury, though, so we can move on to our closing thoughts. So this is a very tight squad. A lot of people think they're aging out, but the benefit is that they've played with each other for a really long time. They got to third place in the last World Cup, but then were knocked out in the group stage of the last Euro Cup. So I think age is catching up with them. Is catching up with them a little bit. Have a few young players coming in, but given the age of the squad, I'm surprised they're not bringing in a few new players at least to try out. We only saw one new player added after December 2025 and no new players on the squad for us there. So we'll have to see. But meanwhile, these are very experienced and good players, so they could do well, just as they did in the last World Cup. All right. Yes, we're going to finish with some Mediacast information here. I gave some information in the introduction, and I'll get the kind of the other half of it here. So we're a bit concerned. We're not sure what to do about the podcast or the Mediacast, because we've been doing it for 5 years now. It's still costing us money to do it. And we were hoping it would grow a little bit more than it has. We think it's a bit different than other World Cup podcasts. Of course, it's a deep dive. And I've had people tell me, like, well, the reason the Mediacast isn't doing well is because it's so boring. And we do know that, but we do, I mean, that's why we do it. We want to do the deep dive. We don't want to do kind of a TikTok kind of style video that so many people are doing. We do actually think there's an audience for it. That's really what we're trying to decide. Is there really not much appetite for this, or is there an appetite for it and we're just not reaching the kind of fans that would be interested in this? So we're doing our best to popularize it during the World Cup here, and we'll kind of sit down and talk about it afterwards and see if we're going to continue. One thing I have avoided doing is using the podcast to appeal to subscribers and smash like buttons or please make comments or reviews and that stuff. I'm a bit uncomfortable with all of that, even though I keep being told that it's really helpful. I'm not really sure it is. But if you like the podcast and you want to help us to find the audience that we think is out there, maybe I should ask you to do those things. It would, or it might help us there. But we will see how we do during this World Cup. And if you like the deep dive, I hope you can support us there and pop or, introduce it to other people in some way or another. Okay, that is it. Our end of our look at Croatia's players. And, we do this because we enjoy the World Cup a lot more when we know who the players are on the field. So we hope that this Mediacast has given that benefit to you and that you join us for the next team we look at. We would like to thank Michael Foster and Pixabay for the wonderful music in this Mediacast. The title of the piece used is Look to the Sky, Tribal Dance Beats Native American.